work that needed to be done to facilitate the road. I don't think that it should be my job to do it, but it's in my constituency. I pushed for the road. I got the support of cabinet, Quincy Gums Marie, Deanne Kentish Rogers, Ken Hodge, Merrick Richardson, um, Deanne Kentish Rogers, and more so Dr. Webster in terms of the development of this road, and also the team over at Maiku to help me along to get this road started, right? To go through procurement and get this road started. There has been some challenges. I know there have been excuses made by the present minister, but we are going beyond those challenges. Some of the things that I observed today, for example, and I mentioned it today while I was on the road, that the intersection that when you exit this new road onto the Jeremiah Gums Road, I thought because of the dire state of the asphalt road there, we should have taken out that piece and have that whole entire area redone. It was just to take a simple variation to the contract, to Leeward Construction contract, to ensure that it was done. Be that as it may, like I said, this is a new administration. They have a different focus. They decide that they're going to focus their attention in London and try to ensure that they can prop up the British economy by purchasing real estate in England and also paying taxes in England. I want to say this though, because I see some of their supporters who support this building in England saying that the reason why we are upset with it is because they forced us to it. But if we had an opportunity, we would have taken it. I want to place on record, we did have opportunities to purchase a house in England. We did. We were told that we should purchase a property in England. We were told that they can identify a property in England. And we refused to because we thought that charity began at home, that there were too many needs in Angola to consider going and investing in the colonial masters jurisdiction. So it isn't that we didn't have an opportunity to. We did not see the wisdom in purchasing a building in London, in central London, paying the British government our taxpayers' dollars while there are so many needs here in Angola. And that is why we did not.
Thank you for speaking about the plethora of needs that we have here in Angola. And I know we're going to get into some of those tonight in terms of the things that are left undone, yet to be done, that persons at home would like to see be completed before we ever discuss going and purchasing a property overseas. Mr. Hughes, I want to go back to you for just a second. I also noticed today that the government, they released a video talking about their roads program, and I think the population will always be thankful and grateful that our roads are being considered, because our road infrastructure as it stands is crumbling. Our main roads, they were done when we had that transshipment money. That was back when?
1999.
1999.
So we're
looking at a road network that has not had any major upgrades, or main road network that's not had any major upgrades in some 27 years, right? They spoke about, when I say they, the government spoke about the chip and seal machinery that they have, and that they're going to be starting with the Judge Gums Road, which is most known as the Velabaham Road to most, almost as a test road. Your thoughts on that?
I do not have an issue with that road being done. But what I can say is that if they were really keen on doing a test road, it should have been the Phillips Drive, because it's a short road. It was earmarked to be done by the APM administration. Merrick Richardson fought hard for that, and the North Hill Road. It was budgeted for in 2025. And if you really wanted to do a test piece, then I truly believe the best test piece would have been the Phillips Drive Road. That would have been an ideal place to do a test piece. Unless you'd have gone into the Keys, because in the Keys, there's a lot of really, really bad roads. There's also the Pelican Road over in Lockrum area, Blowing Point area. That's really, really terrible. Those are a number of options that you could have done for a test piece. But when it comes to a test piece, I really don't have an issue. Um, Also, if you want to do a test piece, the road that leaves from where Suppers, Restaurant and Booze's into the Coronation Avenue, that could have been a test piece as well. Although a test piece is just a test piece, because I believe that the chip and seal is owned by a private company. I would assume that if that is a course of action, they would be going through a sole source, because it still has to go through procurement. So it'll probably have to be a sole source or a single source procurement process where you only have one person bidding for that. That can have other challenges, because persons who are interested in doing so and who would be inclined to invest in those type of things can also sue and say, well, we didn't have the opportunity to bid. So there's some things that the government of Angola will have to consider as they move forward with this sole source proposition that they're doing in terms of chip and seal. Now, on the surface, I don't really have a big issue with chip and seal, but what I can say, because the chip and seal can be done a lot faster than a concrete road, but a concrete road is going to last a lot longer than a chip and seal road. And that is why we were going with concrete. It's more sturdy, it's more durable. If we can withstand a whole lot more when it comes to patching, it's easier to patch. So, but if this is the direction in which they want to go to, then that's the direction. I'm not going to be here bashing whatever decisions they're going to make on as it relates to these things. But what I can say is that we had a program called Operation Eradicate Dirt Roads, and the plan was to get rid of all the dirt roads. What I'm kind of disturbed about is this, right? A private company, a private individual imported a large number of jumbo bags of cement into this island. And the Angola United Front is trying to give the impression that myself and my brother had something to do with it, because we were going to monopolize or capitalize on the Operation Eradicate Road program. And I'm thinking to myself, why would they even think that? And think that we would wait until the end of our term to do something like that rather than do it at the beginning of the term. You know what I mean? But then they need to stop spreading this sort of misinformation. They know it's misinformation because the owner, I reached out to the owner and I asked and I got the details. And very early o'clock, he spoke to the premier about this particular issue. So I guess it's politics, and that's the way they operate in terms of the political sphere in Angola and in the world. So I kind of understand that. But as it relates to the test piece, I think it would have been better to tackle some of those roads that was already earmarked. Now, we know also that the APM, there's a number of roads that the APM had earmarked, including the Mayor's Baker Road, the road that leads from Cannonball, Napa, down to the Lakes Junction, and from Lakes Junction down to the Webster's Park. We already did all the surveying and everything for that road long before we left office. We're talking about 2022 or 2023 when we did it. The reason why that did not start is because that would have been done in conjunction with the terminal opening. So, and then we know of this Phillips Drive Road, we know of the North Hill Road in first phase, because the idea was to get all the way down to the point, and Merrick and Quincy can tell you that government acquired land down on the point in North Hill to ensure that we can develop the road going down that way. There's roads in the Keys that we had earmarked as well. There's True Eyes, a number of roads, Isaac Cliff Road, a number of roads that we had identified that needed to be done between 2024 and 2023 and 2027. So I don't know what they unveiled today, but what I can say is based on what I heard Jose speaking about in the town hall in East End, all of the projects that he was speaking about are APM legacy projects.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the town hall and what transpired there in a little bit. You spoke about procurement, Hayden, and I want Quincy to jump in because I see that there is still some, whether willful misinformation being put out there about how government procurement process works. People are just genuinely ignorant to how it works. And it's unfortunate, especially when those persons are in entertainment media, that they continue to misinform about the procurement. I'm not sure the context in which the media personality was speaking, but he referenced and he said, given the way how procurement is moving and how things are so slow, it is no he's not surprised then the route that APM took when dealing with the Lansing Bowl Cultural Center. And I know, but I think we need to let the public know why the Lancer Bowl Cultural Center did not fall under the rules of procurement in the same way that the building, the Caracas Bay building in Stony Ground would have fallen under the procurement process, even though Anglic is a separate company. So Quincy.
So the use of public funds is what ultimately triggers the procurement process. And that is monies coming from the Treasury or monies that was sent to the Treasury to be used. So for example, if you are a donor and you donate $2 million to the government to complete a project, and the government will then have to be responsible for paying that money, managing that money in order to complete the project, then that project will attract procurement. Or if the government would like to do a project and they're using their own monies from the Treasury, from monies collected, then procurement will be triggered. Procurement is simply the government of Anguilla using a technical process to set out the scope of the project. So we are building a house. It tells you how many acres of land the house, or how many, what is the size of the lot of land, how many rooms, you know, the technical drawings and such. What is the expectations? Or what are the expectations, my bad? What standards are expected of government, because that can increase or decrease the price. And whatever additional tailoring the government of Angola would need on the project. They put this all into one document. All persons interested in building this house, for example, can go to the government of Angola, collect this information, and then submit a bid that is then graded on a grid decided by the government of Angola, and the person with the highest number, about the highest tally, would be rewarded. That's a simple version. In the event where the government of Angola would like something to go forward with a project that they're not handling the money, so the money is not coming to the government of Angola. However, maybe the plans might be coming through the government of Angola, or the idea of the plans is of the government of Angola. Still, that money does not come into Treasury, does not come into government, it's not handled by government, and it is handled by the third party who is paying. Procurement is not triggered, because what procurement is the efficient management of public funds. So if I am privately giving the government $2 million to erect a building, then it becomes a situation where the government needs to manage that money. But if I am telling the government, I am going to invest $2 million into a building and hand it over to you, or lands that was publicly owned by government, and we know that at the end of the day, the structure will belong to the government, there's no need for procurement, because there is no management of public funds. So with the Lansom Bowl, $4 million was donated by the darts company, owner of several properties in Anguilla.
Wait, can I stick up in there? It wasn't donated per se.
Well, you stopped my sentence.
Okay. And it was fine. It was fine.
In 5 million, sorry, in kind, which means that they built the building and then gave the value of the building to the government of Angola. So in this case, $5 million was not given to the government of Angola, so procurement would not have been triggered. $5 million was invested on lands owned by the government of Angola to erect the Lansom Bowl, and the building then turned over once the construction was completed. At that point, you do not need procurement. But whenever there's management of public funds, procurement is triggered.
Right, and I just want you to
If I may add to
clarify.
that, if I may add to that.
One second, Hayden, because I wanted Quincy to clarify one thing that she said, where she said, you know, the bids come in and the government of Anguilla will then choose. I want you to clarify.
It can't sound like ministers are responsible. No, there is a procurement. There is a procurement unit in the government of Anguilla, as in the institution of government, not the ministerial side. And that institution is ran by persons who operate outside of the ministers. So the ministers cannot give directions or directives to the procurement unit. However, they can give input to the document that's being sent out from the very early stages. So if the ministers would like to see something special with this building, they can say, "Oh, we'd like to see this," but that doesn't go into the document verbatim from the minister's mouth. It must then go to the technical officer, who then informs the procurement document that is then publicly facing. But it is a very hands-off experience. The minister is not supposed to have, I mean, when a minister does have any interaction with the procurement process, corruption is occurring. It is supposed to be very far, not even arm's length. It's supposed to be in the other room. The minister is informed probably after the person who's successful is informed. It is not a process where the minister can say, "Oh, let me just take a peek. Let me see who." You don't get that opportunity. You can give as much information to the team when they're creating a document in terms of what you would like ultimately like to see. You don't get to know what is the figure the government, the procurement unit or the government of Angola as an institution is looking for. So sometimes the decision is basically made by figure. You are not even allowed to know the figure. You're not allowed to know any of the determining details because you want to give other persons an opportunity, and you don't want projects in Angola to be the to be a political opportunity for people. We want all persons who are registered and legally operating to have a valid chance at being able to offer services, goods, and such to the government.
There's also a technical component where there's a technical committee that is separate and apart from the procurement board. So they work kind of separate, but then there's a procurement officer who oversees everything once it's done to make sure that nothing untoward happens. So there's basically three layers as it relates to that. And the government of Angola has no part to play with it. Now, with the Lansambole Cultural Center, we had considered the possibility of funding it through taxpayers, but then it could meet within the budgetary process. So the opportunity came where we could, because when Dr. Webster became Minister of Finance and Premier, one of the things that he insisted in every memorandum of understanding was that the social project was defined in the memorandum of understanding. The social project was defined. Now, with that, as it relates to Lansambole Cultural Center, for full transparency, the memorandum of understanding was not totally completed as yet, but they were willing, as good faith, to go ahead and contribute a social contribution before the memorandum of understanding was consummated. So that was already defined, already understood, already agreed upon, even though it was not signed. And one of the reasons why it was not signed too is because they also wanted to sign it in person, and coordinating all of that was taking some time. So they decided to move forward with the project. Now, the thing is that we've had memorandums of agreement dating back to the late 1970s, right? None of them have ever come through in terms of a social project for the people of Angola. Between 2002 and 2008, the Angola United Front signed 10 memorandums of agreement for major development projects in Angola. Not one of them contributed in a social project. It was said in the memorandums that within 6 months, the developer will meet with the Minister of Finance, the Permanent Secretary of Finance, with the liaison officer for the development project to determine what project they will invest in. It never happened until the Angola Progressive Movement came to office and insisted on everyone. That's how we got the MRI machine. That's how we got the lunch program. That's how we got Lansambole Cultural Center. And you know, Quincy, don't forget this one. We would also got the development of the Fountain Beach, the Fountain area. But we lost that because this government was very hostile in terms of the way they discussed the whole Lansambole Cultural Center, so nobody was inclined. Even the Beach Enclave project that would have been between Great House and the Aurora Hotel, there was a project that was defined in that as well. And also, don't forget, there was also the Marina project, right? That's supposed to, I don't know what's happening with that in terms of their development of their social project, their social class.
I'll reserve my thoughts on that for now. Merrick, I promise you that I would allow you an opportunity to get in here tonight. I know you're freshly back from the UK, and on the minds of a lot of Anguillians is this house, this office in London. And we've heard a lot of reasons why we should not do this house right now. But I want to give you the opportunity to tell us, just returning from an official business, was there at any point during your trip a moment where you felt, well, if this house, this office was here, it would have facilitated my trip or made my trip easier? You were there on official business.
Um, Short answer, no. Short answer, no. Listen,
Long answer?
Long answer. Listen, sometimes I am in amazement with this administration, how they are sinking their teeth, how they're digging in when it comes to this house in the UK. It honestly feels to me like it's beyond them. It's beyond them. I had some questions in the house some time back, and answers couldn't be given because no property at the time was identified. But then we heard one of the ministers in the House of Assembly said they visited that house, that property that they're about to purchase all the way back in November. Which begs the question, okay, what's going on? And I am very wary because we've seen as a public where Exco minutes have just disappeared, and it's hard to follow exactly
Redacted.
what is
Redacted.
disappeared there. No, redacted. Listen, redacted means redacted means that there's something up and certain parts are redacted,
Not
but
available for public consumption.
available for public consumption. Thank you for putting it so eloquently. But what we have seen there are times when there are no minutes at all. They are disappeared. That's not redactment. That's not redactment. We only know of particular minutes because persons love to go on the radio and hear themselves, and they've spoken about particular issues. Other than that, we the general public would have no idea how our monies are gone. But this administration passion with this house in the UK, when I was speaking with some gentlemen last night, and they was like, look, you guys have all this AI money, why don't you make your roads better? Well, and there was so many things being discussed that we can do, and I will get more to it as the program goes along. But we have so many issues at home. We are already paying, and I can't keep speaking about it enough, and I will keep on speaking about it till I'm red in my face. And I'm very dark, so it's going to get hard for me to be red in my face. But we are already paying over $500,000 annually for a rep in the UK, somebody who's supposed to be taking care of our needs. We have the governor who meets on a weekly basis with our premier, and that's the link between what's happening in the UK, what's happening there. We have the rep already on the ground, and according to the executive council minutes, we are already paying. Separate and apart from what she's being paid to be the rep, we are also paying to have her office space furnished. So we are already paying all this money. Okay, maybe we can have the discussion. Can we bump it up a bit? Maybe more needs to be done, maybe a little bit more so that there can be additional staff included. But to go and say you're purchasing a property, because not only is it the purchasing of the property, we are going to gain when this do come back to the house. It's going to increase our budget. It's going to increase our budget by $9.5 million because we saw where it was in before. So our budget and what each of us have to be paying as individual taxpayers, because we are the ones who pay off the budget. We the taxpayers. Yes, AI money is coming in, but it's always good to remind people that we the taxpayers are the ones responsible for paying the budget. That's going to go on the $9.5 million. And we still haven't seen it. I would have loved to have the discussion in the House of Assembly now to see the figures. What is it going to cost us annually to operate this house? Because there's a lot of costs. While up there, I did ask questions about operating properties in the UK. And if you basically pay, you almost have to pay. If you own a property, you almost have to pay to go on the property and take a breath. To breed in the property, you almost have to pay because the fees are wide and varied in the UK. And we the ones gonna have to be paying for them. We just a couple years ago, we had to be going hand in hand when we had and during COVID and beg to the UK, please help us, please help us. And they gave us a whole host of conditions for that money, a whole host of conditions for that money, which was in the MOU. Now we are saying to them, but look at us, we could speak and spend and send another couple $1 million in your country. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me.
You know, it's also interesting that persons in the UK are speaking about their current cost of living crisis. We see where the Prime Minister has announced his resignation, that he will be stepping down soon because persons are not pleased with the cost of living in the UK, amongst a host of other measures. And there are persons that ask the same questions here in Anguilla, where, well, we have a cost of living crisis here as well. The cost of living has skyrocketed, whether it is by measures that were put in place by this administration or a combination of factors, including global events. There's no doubt that global events have contributed to the increased cost of living. But at the same time, that was also compounded by the decisions of this administration to remove GST and replace it with 2 GSTs. Because you remove one and you replaced it with 2. And if you do the math, if you take away 1, but you add 2, then you're up 1, which means that the prices obviously are going to go up, not down. It's just basic, simple math. That being said, you know, I know that we're at this point where, and you know things are bad when the diehards are saying, give us some sort of relief, give us some sort of handout, but make it different than the handout that APM was given, even if it's equal to the same amount. Make it different so it seems like it's yours. The fact of the matter is that people are saying, help us. Help us.
You know, I was speaking to a young man the other day, and he was very frustrated with the prospect of purchasing a home. This is someone who lived in England for a period of time, is back in Angola. And he gave me a list of reasons why this home should not be bought. House, as in an official house and not a home, but the government house should not be bought. And one of the most simple things that he said is, how many times do you go to St. Martin? You go to St. Martin very often. Rent a car, do you own a car? Mm-hmm. Is it because you go often, do you say, I may as well just buy the car, leave it on the dock because I go so often instead of renting it? Or do you just rent the car when you need to and on a needs basis, engage with St. Martin in a different way? So, I mean, in moments when you need the car because you have to go long routes, maybe today is just a day, let me just jump in a taxi, go XYZ. Maybe you're going to the airport, so renting a car doesn't make sense. You get flexibility. His simple question to me is, just because you go to St. Martin every week, would you own a car over there? Very simple, right?
Yeah, I'm here laughing and I forgot to unmute, but that is probably the best way to put it. I haven't heard an example of it of what we're looking at when it comes to this house in the UK put better than that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And when I think of the UK house, um, I've seen them use their proxies to try to go online and say, well, other countries own homes, but we need to official houses. We need to also contextualize the circumstance under which these houses are bought. So Hayden can attest to the fact that we've had UK reps before, and their contribution to our overall voter analysis distribution is still around 4%. Investing in a UK house to house a UK rep for tourism is not going to change the outcome because we have already invested in UK reps who had their own offices there, who are representing other countries as well, but they had a physical presence there and they could still yield 4% for us. That's something to consider. A house is not going to make a significant difference in that. But they also speak about BVI. Now, Geneva, this is your area of expertise. But the BVI would have registered around almost 8,000 new companies as of this month.
But no, in the first, I can tell you, in the first quarter of 2026, the BVI registered upwards of 7,500 companies just in those first 3 months of 2026.
How many people, how many companies have we registered?
Now, it's very easy to count how many companies we've registered since we've switched over to the new system that we have, which is CREST, the commercial CREST. I don't have the name off the top of my head, the proper name for it. And CREST was implemented in 2022. Since the implementation of CREST in 2022, up until the last company that I registered sometime this month, we had just about 3,500 companies. So in 4 years,
in the period of 3 years, we had 3,500 companies.
4 years.
4 years. Oh yeah, sorry, 4 years.
Yes. So in the period of 4 years, we have registered less than half of the number of companies that the BVI has registered in the first 3 months of this year.
Montserrat is also one of those countries that own their physical presence. Now, what would have happened in Montserrat that would have triggered the need to have a physical station to assist their people with climate related migration? What would have happened?
1995, July 1995 volcano. But not only that, who's paying for that presence? And one of the things that they have to consider is a lot of the presents that are in London by overseas territories or colonies are being rented.
Yeah, but I'm speaking specifically to those who would have made that purchase and justifying why that purchase would have made sense for them. We can't compare apples to oranges. And then you have
Turks and Caicos and Cayman, they register a whole lot more companies than we do, and they don't own.
So we have not had that justification, that, okay, this makes sense justification in all of this conversation other than other countries have owned theirs. So that's why I pointed out those two overseas territories, regional overseas territories that have a physical presence that they own and also recognize the context in which this makes sense to their countries. Notwithstanding the fact that we have a government that is speaking about moving towards independence, is this a time to invest in a physical space right now with a country that economically is not one of our major trade partners? What is the justification?
Not only that, Quincy, the England as a whole is going through some real challenges as well. And I don't understand the sense, the rationale behind it. But I want to go back to this, right? Even if you had some sort of rationale behind purchasing that property, what about all of the needs that we have in this country?
I
Significant
haven't
needs.
even got to this.
Every time I leave my house, I hear people are just talking about all the things that we need to be doing in Anguilla, and the government of Anguilla seems to have no focus on these things, you know. And and
Rapid fire, Hayden.
Mhm.
Give me the top three that person
The
sell you that they need.
healthcare, proper hospital and healthcare, surgeons, etc. People who can do proper diagnostics and so forth. Healthcare, education, and healthcare comes up as number one, and then roads and road infrastructure.
Quincia,
So you're talking about social and physical infrastructure.
rapid fire, Quincia, top three.
I'm just going to put this one response as my top three: resilience, infrastructure for resilience. And I'm going to just describe it. I know it's a rapid fire. We need to be moving towards smart investments. For example, at this point where we have financial excess, should we be looking at a loan and waiting for the CDB's model to help ANGLEC migrate towards renewable energies? So that's one. Two, while we're looking at redoing our roads, I think the minister would have said from eastern to western, which is important to redo because I keep talking about the fact that our current main roads are very close to being, unuseful. We need to also be looking at removing all of our electrical lines underneath the ground at the same time of doing the water networks. We're not having those kind of conversations. We need to appreciate that it took a 6-hour storm to erase 90% of our GDP and leave us in a place where 60 million pounds was not enough to get us to recovery. When you put it in that way, AI money is almost a drop in the bucket if we have a catastrophic storm in the middle of a global economic meltdown. We need to be investing in Anguilla's resilience, climate investments.
And Quincy, to that point, there's so many damning predictions for this year in terms of a super El Nino, right? Which heats up the global climate, which heats up the water, which basically put us at a vulnerable position as it relates to hurricanes and so forth. So there's so much things that we can do. I know when you were a minister, you had ensured that we invested in a beach sweeper to clean the beaches of Sargassum. But there's also other ways in which you can prevent the sargassum from coming ashore. So if it is that you have all of this money and you want to spend these millions, let us look at how we can mitigate against some of these challenges, such as sargassum and what have you, you know? But like I said, the government of Angola seem to have lost focus, or they just don't have enough focus, and they're just winging it as they go along and making some real terrible decisions that are going to be burdensome to us because this is not just a one-time purchase. I think Merrick mentioned it some time ago. This is just not a one-time purchase. You have to pay property taxes in England. You have to do maintenance. You have to pay staffing and so forth. So there's a lot of things to consider, and I don't understand why is it that they don't change course. I mean, we have suggested some things that they can do to help businesses in Angola, to help the people of Angola, such as removal of the USL from businesses and from employees' paychecks. We have suggested things like removal of property tax on commercial properties and so forth. And it seems as if the government is deaf to what is happening in Angola.
And I will add to my list as well, people in youth development. We have young persons who are going off, doing great things. And although Angola can't do everything, there is a lot of room to support budding interests. We know we have a lot of swimmers having an Olympic-sized pool available, publicly available, gymnastic opportunities. If we want to help our young people to elevate, you have to give them the tools to do so. And, sometimes when I hear people who are living away, who are living off the benefit of historically well-established tax systems, where their children go off to do all of these great opportunities, and the local children of Anguilla can only dream to get those opportunities or have to wait till they meet someone who knows someone who can build a bridge. It it hurts my heart because our young people, they have the ability, they have the will, they need the way, and the way is not through further investment in the UK.
Right. Merrick, I'll give you 2 seconds to come up with your rapid fire answers. But Quincy, I want to, I have not heard much
Let
talk.
Mary go first and then come back to me.
No, no,
In
no,
a
no,
quick.
no. It's not actually for you to answer. It's just a comment. In that I've not heard since March of 2025, I've not heard much from the government of Angola in terms of climate resilience, climate investment in such. And to me, that speaks about the lack of capacity, the lack of persons with knowledge in that area. And I'll just say it is to Angola's loss that we no longer have a minister that is competent, capable, and knowledgeable about climate challenges, climate resilience, and what that looks like when we combine that with the economics. The overall scope of our economics, and then also the funding for the inevitable, because it is the inevitable. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. So Merrick,
you can let Mary go ahead.
Merrick, your quick fire three.
Well, my quick fire three. I am going to jump on the bandwagon with Quincy in terms of talking about us going underground with our utilities. Because I made it in during the budget debate way back in November. My thought was, look, maybe instead of focusing on this loan for solar, because we can get a solar, we have the plant up and running. Another armor passes through, God forbid. And I mean, to me, if I be totally honest, it's not a if we'll get another armor, it's when we will get another armor. And we're in a situation now that we have to find another $15-20 million to build back our utility lines. So from then I was on and it seemed to be a hill I was on by myself, that our focus should be placed on us putting our utility lines underground. The other thing, the Natal Road. They could definitely use some of that $9.5 million for the Natal Road that they keep saying there was never enough money for. There was not enough money for the Natal Road, but there's enough money for the house in the UK. Makes sense. I think we have to start thinking about our social issues. We need a place of safety for young ladies in Angola. Times are changing. We are not in 1967 anymore. Times are changing. There's a place that is rented now. If the owners decide, hey, the rent agreement is up, we need that for our own business purposes. Where are we? Focus can be placed on that. I am seeing an alarming rise in how many persons are affected by the use of alcohol and other drugs related. Are we going to wait till it becomes a major problem on the island, or should we jump ahead and start looking at building a proper rehab center for persons on the island? I mean, you see where I'm heading. We have a parents on the ground that, thank goodness for many of the private charter boat owners, that they have been doing their best to keep it together. Can monies be put into that, and it can be used also for the fishermen, that they can have a pier that they can drive off and drive on? We can go on and have a 2-hour program just about the needs that we have here in Angola, just that the needs we have here, as opposed to the ones we have in the UK. But you told me 2 seconds, right? I did go a little over the 2 seconds.
No. I said you had 2 seconds to come up with your rapid fire. And these are certainly not top 3 for me, because I think you guys have covered some of the top ones. we're about to end one school year. And in a few short months, parents, yes, we're just starting summer, but in a few short months, we'll be back at it, back into school again. And Hayden mentioned the predictions for a very strong and long El Nino this year. And with that, we know we see rising temperatures. What does that mean for our students, their learning environments, the lack of air condition in the schools? It's very interesting because we know where the UK stands in terms of most places and ACs. They're sweltering. But should we swelter? Should we swelter?
I think
And should our students
this matter
swelter?
was actually brought up in Dr. Webster's initial communication about this government's priorities. I think it would have said something along the lines of the fact that schools are now left to go to individual businesses and persons in the community to find the funding to get AC units for their classes in their individual schools. But there needs to be a wholesale approach to buying units for all of the schools, because we have to accept, I mean, this Sahara dust phenomenon that we're dealing with that makes the place additionally so hot. This was not something that was affecting us in this way 10,
and
15
not
years
just hot,
ago.
it's also the dust that the kids are inhaling, and
Right,
it leads
and
to
it's
respiratory
prohibited to the
issues.
development of brain. So it's a situation where the classrooms are dustier, they are hotter, and we don't even have general atmospheric moisture cooling the air. It's just hot air or no air. That's really the options the students have to deal with. Students get agitated, they're uncomfortable, they can't focus. It's an issue because teachers are identifying it's an issue. But there is something that I wanted to touch on, and just before we move on, I want to just walk back to some of my initial comments about this UK house. I don't understand why we, as in this Angular progressive movement, are the ones who have to make the case to this government who campaigned on you can't eat concrete, that this cannot be a priority right now. And I want to go further in, explaining this, because the premier of the country on I think it might have been a national press conference, she would have stated that month by month, I'm going to say it in the tone it was said, month by month, she's wasting money on cost of living and not getting anything from it. Around I think it was $8.7 million a month. Compare that to using $9.5 million for a tangible asset in the UK. Doesn't that make more sense to you? That was basically the point that she was making. And it is unfathomable to me how a woman who stood before the people of Angola and told them that they don't need an airport. The land symbol was good, but not a priority. The development of the seaport was okay, but the people are hurting. The road development plan is nice. The Valley Main Road is okay, but what about the pockets of the people? The plans that the APM has for you is okay, but what about the price of conflicts? Can now tell you that the money you spent on government services that is giving government the opportunity to give back to you is being wasted, and a more tangible use of your taxpayer dollars is to buy a house that you will not benefit any more from than UK presence currently is giving us in the UK. How heartless, how tone deaf, and how absolutely absurd it is that not just a minister of government, but a premier of the country can get before persons and think that this makes sense to have said. I am an Anguillian before I am a politician. And I have said to my husband, I've said to my close friends, and I've said it to you guys in, behind door meetings. I don't know how it will be like for me being in opposition, because I am not going to try to create an issue when there's not one. I'm not going to try to convince the people of Angola something is not good for them when it is, only because I'm not doing it. That is not in of my ilk. That's not in my pedigree. That's not in my philosophy as a human being. And time after time again, as a sitting minister of the APM administration, I saw members of this current administration convince Angoleans that things that they needed were unnecessary, were unnecessary. But today is telling them without any meaningful justification, I don't know why I'm spending 8 point something million on you, because at the end of the day, I can't look back and get anything from it. But if I spend just a little bit more, $1 million more, I can get a house. So what do you think? Wait, that making sense to you? Is she being serious? Is this the Angola we are living in 2026? I have never been more convinced that our voices as an opposing party are more than necessary, because this government can only do what is right when they're shamed into doing so. That is going to
Hayden, I see you're
No,
speaking
I'm
here.
saying, give me one example of them being shamed into doing something that's right.
Well, they had to try to redo the salary review. We can look at that a little later, because I have
Well,
opinions on how it's being
I don't
done.
know if that is the case. I just think that it just did it for
Well,
political reasons. But
I just want to jump in there. I just want to jump in here on Quincy's point about even speaking about to the Premier's point about what they're putting in terms of relief. Is where the taxpayers who are paying the relief go and look at the budget. Go and look at the increase in the budget. The increase in the budget is not because of the salaries. That money was already allocated for. There's over $15 million put in there for the relief of the people. The budget was increased to create the relief. So we, the people, are paying for our own relief. So that makes that statement even crazier, because it's not money that they find. It's not money that just drop out of the sky. If you go and take a careful look at the budget, there was already $40 million put aside to cover the salary review. They only use about $26 million, but yet the budget increased. And that is because this money is set aside to help with the relief. So this is money that just floating around in the savings or anything like that. This is monies that we ourselves have to pay back. I just wanted to jump in on that point to add to what Quincy was saying.
Merrick, you say that we have to pay back. And I think sometimes it's easier for people to think of it in terms that they already know. In the US, you get rebates. Consider it a rebate. Consider it your.
That statement, that sentiment, and I just want to go back to it. This statement is not just being made by the Premier, the statement is being made by the Minister of Finance. That is
The Minister of Finance did
and
say the Minister of Finance did say, they brought something to the House, but they didn't really look at the figures.
but it brings me to be at the point where I can comfortably say right now, based on my observation, she is heartless, she's out of touch and out of her depth. And we either need to get a new Minister of Finance, or she needs to leave somebody who knows how to do the job of governance to do the job of governance. I have no confidence in her or her cabinet's ability to govern Angola in a meaningful way. And when you do have strong opinions online, if you look at the conversations, not on my page for sure, but if you look on other people's pages, you see that their supporters and their defenders, their only defense is, well, they won the 2025 elections. Kyle Hodge, every time you give him anything hard, he goes back to you in the House of Assembly. Well, this is why we won. Shelia Rogers, when Deanne said it was pork barrel politics, she said, well, if you were practicing more pork barrel politics, you would have been a minister of government. Girl, please. The apex of contribution to your country is not sitting in the government's office. It is making meaningful and positive impacts on the lives of Angoleans. You are, and I want to contextualize this, you are the richest government in the history of Angola. You are the only government in the history of Angola that's not coming in with a hard decision to make. You are the first government in the last, I believe, 1.5 or 2 decades that is not operating with someone in the UK meddling in our finances. You have met all the ratios.
You're talking about 50 years. You're talking about 50 years of someone in the UK not meddling in our budgetary process.
All right.
And
this
you know who
is
did
what
it?
the
The
APM
Angola
handed over
Progressive
to
Movement
you.
did it, hand over that situation to people. It's a weird situation. But you mentioned Kyle Hodge, the name, right?
Wait, 1
And
second. This is what the government, hold on. This is what the APM handed over. You gave us a country that was on the brink of collapse with no ability to pay its own bills, its own salaries. We had to meet criteria of the UK government in order to get tranches of money to pay salaries. You are at a point where you have inherited a situation that's so sweet, you can increase salaries. It is night and day. And how do you manage to fumble the ball if not for incompetence? You have only competence in destroying things. The history, and someone called me the other day angry with me because they said, Quincy, you're holding the front to a standard that they have never historically proven to you that they could meet. Yet they have never historically proven that they can manage money. They have never historically proven that they can make good decisions for the country. They have never historically proven that they can advance ideas. So why do you hold them to the standard? Why do you get vexed on APM Online? They can't do what you're asking them to do. So now I end up getting cussed out because the government can't operate.
That says a lot. That says a lot, because I think when we say elections have consequences, and I don't think people take these things into consideration. When you consider the caliber, the capacity, and the competence of the candidates before you, and you've decided personalities, you've decided maybe a little, actually, I'm going to leave that one right there. You've decided that those things mattered more than having proven, capable, competent persons. Then we cannot ask ourselves why we are in the position that we are now in. We cannot. Because the truth of the matter is the writing was on the wall. Any thinking person should have asked, who would be taking care of our Ministry of Finance? Any capable and any thinking person would have been asking, who is taking care of our climate needs? Any thinking person would have asked, who is going to be taking care of our health care? So if persons didn't think about those things before, well, this is the result. Hayden, I know you wanted to jump in here.
no, when Quincy mentioned Kyle Hodge name, right? I had posted under the government of Angola's update on the marina, and I said another Angola Progressive Movement project. And Kyle Hodge came on, he called me self-serving. That the reason for that project is because the Angola United Front. Listen to this, the Angola United Front did a consultation on marinas in Angola. Now Kyle Hodge, the consultation, there was the consultant that did the whole thing on the marinas in Angola. It was done during the Angola United Front administration. Kyle Hodge knew about that, but he joined the Angola Progressive Movement, right? Even though that was the case. But for Kyle Hodge to go and do revisionist history to give the impression that that marina at Altamont has to do with some consultation that was done by the United Front prior to us getting in office is absurd at best. And just for Kyle Hodge knowledge, I want to say this, that when Altima first came to Anguilla, it wasn't going to be Altima. They were going to build a private home on that property. Hubert Benjamin Hughes, who was the Minister of Lands, refused to give them an alien landholder license for a private home there and insisted it must be a tourism-based project. Insisted. And then they agreed and they did 3 villas and a restaurant. Now, fast forward to 2006. In 2006, when real estate was going crazy, the owner of Altima at the time decided that they're going to develop a marina, and they started purchasing lands to build villas for sale, homes, real estate for sale, and develop a marina in the pond. The marina was owned by a number of families in Anguilla. The pond was owned by a number of families in Anguilla. They bought it out to develop the marina. Now the owner got sick and decided to divest of it, didn't move forward again with it. When the Anguilla Progressive Movement was in government in 2010, is when we went through the whole new ownership of Francis Greenberg of Time Equities. I was on the Trade and Investment Committee at the time, so I was intimately involved in that. And back in 2000, I think it was 2012 or 13 or thereabout. And in those discussions, the key issue of a marina came up because we have always tried to get a marina for Anguilla. Now, Francis Greenberger, he made it clear, because he's still the owner, that he was not interested in marinas, but if it is that he could find a partner for marina, he would move forward with it. It was the Anguilla United Front who signed a secretive memorandum of understanding and a secretive definitive agreement for marina in Sandy Ground Pond. When we came to office, we learned about it, and we decided to do public consultations with the people of Road North in particular, because Merrick said, no marina going in Sandy Ground, especially without the knowledge of the people. And so we had public consultations. One was done at the gazebo at Roy's, and there was another one that was done, I believe, at the Teachers Resource Center. You can correct me if I'm wrong, right? But more than one public consultation occurred. As a matter of fact, Merrick also organized a town hall that we held at John O's. And so we heard from the people and so forth. And we were challenged with the possibility of legal action because the folks for the marina development had a binding agreement for the marina and Sandy Ground. Anyway, we were able to navigate all of that. And then Dr. Webster said, if it is that you truly want a marina in Anguilla, then I'm going to introduce you to Francis Greenberger and let us get this marina in Anguilla. And Dr. Webster in particular, worked hard to ensure that that marina be down there. It had nothing to do with no consultation, Kyle Hodge. Kyle Hodge continues to make these things up, and because he's popular, as they would say, he gets away with it. But these are not the facts. And I know I wouldn't be able to present this type of information in the House of Assembly. That's why I like that we have this program so we can give historical facts. It was Hubert Benjamin Hughes who also insisted to Leandro Rosoto that he could not buy that land right there where Cuisinart was, that is now Aurora, and build his private home. He has to build a tourism-based project. And that's how we got Cuisinart. It was Hubert Benjamin Hughes who told Silliman he could not build his private home over there in Long Bay. And that's how we got Timinus Estates, that's now called Long Bay Villas. Hubert Benjamin Hughes who signed the agreement to develop the Capjuluca Hotel when he was Minister of Lands and thing. Was Hubert Benjamin Hughes who signed the agreement to develop Soleil Hotel and Manoa Hotel and Zeme Beach Hotel. It was Hubert Benjamin Hughes, who was no Anguilla United Front. All right. So, and so Kyle Hodge needs to stop with the lies, because he knows that when they compare the Anguilla Progressive Movement, they compare the Anguilla United Front, there's no comparison, because he himself said it. I just want to get off my chest.
I'm glad you did. And on that, I want us to, I was not personally present in speaking about what the current administration has been speaking about, whether it's through their press conferences, but more importantly, what came about in the town halls. And from some clips that I saw, the house that we weren't so sure about, but that we have visited and we've seen, there were pictures of this house. That's the extent that I am aware of the town hall. So
you need that's a key point, because Merrick, I don't know if he's still there, but Merrick posed questions to Cora about this house. There was all sorts of excuses given while information wasn't granted. On the Monday before the town hall meeting, the Sunday, Cora Richardson Hodge tried the Anguilla United Front tried to sneak in the house, $9.5 million in the supplementary budget for this house. Now, when we found out, the Dr. Webster wrote to the speaker and we were able to get it out. But Cora got up on her feet, she spoke for 3 minutes. And in that presentation, she made a justification for buying the house as consular services, tourism, and investment, right? But she also said that they couldn't speak about certain things because they basically haven't identified a house. We haven't been able to have any discussions on this house. But on the Sunday, we attended a town hall meeting in East End where the same Cora Richardson Hodge, less than a week later, unveiled a picture of this house that she's buying in London.
and they moved quickly.
You know,
At least they've moved quickly on something.
And is adamant that this is something that is good for Anguilla. And you know what is so sad about politics? It takes away any sort of personal objectivity, where people just like sheep go along with a decision such as this. And you know how I know it's a sheep mentality? Because the same people who said to the people of Anguilla that the people of Anguilla can't eat concrete, where we are going to develop even the parking lot of the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport using asphalt. When they came in office, what did they do? They changed it to concrete, the same concrete that the people can't eat. And for them to say that we develop a Lansing Cultural Center that is for 5 days or whatever it is they want to say, it's ridiculous because Lansing Cultural Center was never developed for 5 days. It was developed to be a year-round open facility. And if Deanne Kentish Rogers was on the line, she could tell you all of the fighting that she did to ensure that this would be the case. Now, Shelley said when she gets in office, she would get it done. And over a year later, we still haven't gotten to the point where it's a year on.
But he didn't, if it was only done for 5 days, we saw where monies were put in the budget to go upstairs on the building that if a small earthquake come will fall down. But we see where work is going on the building now. So I mean, I often give them credit because they are masters of the narrative. They are masters of the narrative. And I long for the day when our populace see things for what they are and can analyze things for themselves. So you make on a big thing that this building is no good, the construction is poor, and you mean a small earthquake could throw it down. But then you're going to put people upstairs, not next to it, not close to it. You're going to go up on the same building that you're saying is very, very weak. I mean, they're definitely masters of the narrative to say the building is no good, but we'll go upstairs. Nobody goes upstairs on galvanized roof, you know. You want to go upstairs on a strong building. So it's crazy from the way I see it.
You know, you can.
They are trying to draw this false equivalency between the Lansing Cultural Center and the UK House. Now, my daughter is turning 2 next week, and I think that she's the smartest thing around. But she don't understand everything. So sometimes when she's asking me to do something, I feel like the best way I can communicate to her is I would say, "Oh, this thing just went to sleep. This thing, mommy, that she wants to like watch Little Bear." I'll say, "Well, Little Bear, mommy told me that he has to go to sleep, so you can't watch it." And that makes sense to her. I don't consider that a lie. But Little Bear mommy did not come to talk to me, so I did technically lie, right? And I wonder if Cora thinks that we all dumb. Because government not only spending 9.5 million, but going back to the house after a national budgeting process and say, hey, we need 9.5 million more for this specific house.
After our biggest budget ever.
Being equated to a third party building, not even given, building a structure valued at around $5 million and handed it over to Anguilla. How can you tell me that that is the same thing? Where did the money come from? How was the process done? But most importantly, where is the building? Where is this building? Where is the Lansing Bowl Cultural Center? Is it not in Anguilla? And if it is not operating enough, isn't it all that it needs? Wouldn't all that it need would be additional programs? Because you have the structure. So you're telling me consulate services, tourism, and investment, which means that we're not just buying a building, are we? We have to then make further investments into this building to make it work, which to me is all I'm hearing. I don't know if Panther Vibes is part or associated with this government, but ching, 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 ching is all I hear because they're gonna need more money. They're gonna need more money to operate. It ain't just a 9.5 million, then we can get a house and everything gonna work. We have to now put more resources into this building. Seems like we are refusing to put resources into the Lansing Bowl to try to make a point that we're not. This point is very dull, by the way. Very, very, very dull. This needle cannot pierce water. Very dull. What are you trying to say? I want her in the next press conference to start it out by saying, I do not think the people of Anguilla are idiots. Because you're talking to us like you think we're dumb. You're talking to us like you don't think that we can understand complex matters. And you're now starting to get me vexed.
You know, there's this saying, it says you can fool some of the people all of the time, and you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time.
But the only reason she can't fool all the people all the time is because the method she's using to try to fool us is foolish methods.
But you know, Quincy, you made a point earlier, right, about opposition and the importance of opposition. I kind of like was making a point one time, and me and Hayden were in the no program, and I told Hayden, don't say anything for about a few seconds. And we just had dead air. And that is exactly the point I was trying to make. That's how there's a lot of persons who would prefer if opposition sounds like that. Like there's nothing coming from us. Because can you think of the runaway train this administration would be if we want the ones keep sounding the alarm bells? Could you just imagine? Could you just imagine?
They would have snuck the London House in the same way that they tried to sneak the marina in Senate Ground. The same way that.
But not only that, this silence, if the opposition was silent, we also see silent. We also see that some of the people who elected to be voices and champions of the people in the last 5 years, 2020, 2025, they are suspiciously silent now.
Yeah. They are. And Gleneva do not give me
not only are they silent, they're trying to silence you. Sorry, repeat that, Mary. Ken is sleeping.
But that's a crazy part of it. A person will go and write a 5-page essay under someone's post and tell them don't post long, but post a 5-page essay under their answer. And it's just craziness to think that you as an Anguillian, someone who in the case of Mr. Hodge, someone who obviously, I mean, I don't have to go into his background and how he has dedicated his years to this public service and to the people of Anguilla. I mean, he's there. He has his opinions. He is seeing things. He knows the seat he sat in. And he knows what's actually important for the people of Anguilla. But for someone to come and basically try to just knock it away and say, hey, you don't have an opinion. We are not trying to tell the government what to do. What we are doing is letting the people of Anguilla know, look, this is what your government is doing. We are not really speaking to them because as they like to say, whenever they get a chance, they have a landslide or they have an 8-3 majority in the House. So we are not telling them what to do. We cannot tell them what to do. But what our job is to make sure the people are aware of what they're doing. And the people know whenever they paint this picture of, oh, there was a previous administration. We always bring the facts to show, they're trying smoke and mirrors. They're trying to fool you. So that is the importance of this program and other programs that we do. We even done, I mean, I've jokingly said to more than one person, I say, the government ministers, they are too busy to be listening to our programs. So this message is not for them, but the people, the many people who the taxpayers of this country, the parents who are hoping for a better future for their children, who once saw that Angola was on an incline, that we were rising, and now all of a sudden it's on a pause. This is the ones who we speak to. These are the ones who we speak for.
You know,
Also,
I find it.
I could lose the election 50 times over. So long as one person stand up in the line to vote for me, that person needs representation from and expect representation from me. So
Thank you.
3,000 people stood up in the line, and even if I lost, I owe it to them to voice my concerns about the country they entrusted me to run, because otherwise a couple more votes and all of the persons would have lost. A couple more votes switched the other way, they would have been in the seat, and you would have wanted that representation. So you can't say, oh, you lost the election, so you don't have a foot to stand on. Yeah, I have 3,000 of them, because people are expecting, when I gave this government an opportunity, and I was silent for a year, a whole year, I was being attacked. Why are we in hearing you? You need to come out more. You need to get on the radio. I said, to be quite honest, I didn't even listen to what's going on in government for me to even go on the radio. I said I can listen when I feel like it's time to listen. But right now I feel like they're making pauses, they're making decisions, they're doing whatever. Let the government govern. But there comes a time when you have to realize that you are entrusted by people to represent, and you have to stand up and bang your hand on the table and say, this cannot be done. You have to sound the alarm, because we have, and then my opinion of the government is 8 blind sheep. So now I must let my people that I love be guided by 8 blind sheep? No, I gotta say, hey, the sheep ain't even looking in the eastern sky and I'm thinking them going east. We gotta turn back. We gotta turn back. East is this way. We gotta look to the east this way to see the rise of the sun this way. They go in the wrong direction. I gotta do that because I have a responsibility. And I have told them many times that their dissatisfaction with what I'm saying is not grounds for anything. When I was in the house, I used to stand up and point to others, and I would say, hey, your dissatisfaction with your own record is not a point of order. You can't point to order because you don't like what I'm saying. In the same way now, you can't shut me up because you don't like what I'm saying. The only way you can really realistically shut Quincy Comes me up is to do your work and do it good. Because like I said, I ain't up here to talk for talking's sake. I am not going to tell the country this is not good for you simply because I'm not the one doing it. That's your style of politics. It got you to where it got you, but it didn't take you further. Because once it got there, you didn't know what to do. So we know what's up. I'm pretty satisfied with what I am doing because I know the kind of advocacy we need right now is right. The people are being lied to. We have a lack of transparency. We have all of the things. You know what's like, and I come up here and people be like, Quincy, I like to see you get mad. This is not an act. Honestly, I just come here happy. And then as I start to think on these things, I get mad, progressively angrier. But the things that are bothering me the most, I am seeing elements of governance that got us to where we were in 2020. Mm-hmm. And we worked too hard as a country. We sacrificed too much as a people to go back there when we don't need to go back there. Additionally, I am seeing the early makings of a UK government giving this country a long rope for ultimately getting to the point of a commission of inquiry. Other day I posted long rope for Margot Goat.
Margot Goat. Mm-hmm.
My mother Dominican, so I got a goat version. You got a dog version, but same thing. The UK, they went maybe to ABC, buy some rope, and hand delivered it to this government and say, do what you will. No, it's fine. No. People are asking, where is the governor? Where is the governor? Not the governor doing? Hey, more rope, more rope, more rope. And leaving them to hang themselves. And one day, somebody gonna pull the rope. And we're gonna see. They need to realize that the governance, we as ministers of government, as elected officials, you are stewards. Angola is not yours. Nobody leave it to you in the will. You have to handle it and deal with it as a country that is worth being handed over to the next generation. Whether it is the next generation of your party or the next generation of leaders from another party, you should not handle and manage Angola in a way that will harm its ability to function in the future. That is the history of your party. This is the time to turn a new leaf.
So you say don't handle it in the way that you've handled your personal businesses.
I didn't say that. Now, who said that?
I thought I heard. I thought that's what I heard.
Okay.
Just
You and easy.
that's what I thought I heard. But you know,
Merrick trying to jump in.
Jump in, Merrick. Save me from myself.
I just wanted to commend Quincy on what she just said, because it's a conversation I've had in private more than one time. Because when you're elected, is the weight of the entire country is on your shoulders. You literally do not think about what is best for you. You actually always think what is best for the country. And that's what I remember going back to the GST times. We did not want GST. We battled about GST in cabinet, but we knew the hard decision had to be made. We did not go outside, put our finger up in the air, see which way the wind is blowing, and then go and say, okay, this is the way we're gonna go because the wind is blowing. We knew Anguilla needed to be rescued. Anguilla needed to be rescued. Hard decisions had to be made. Very, very hard and difficult decisions. And you can't make hard decisions for the country. Think it by your biggest supporter Facebook posts. You have to sit down amongst your team and the technocrats and discuss over and over and look at all possible avenues. That's how decisions are made. Not because this is a noise being made on a particular radio station, so we're gonna have to shift course. No. That's not how a country is run. That's how you're gonna run off the road. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
You know, there's also this level of hypocrisy. And I think one of our future shows, we're going to really deep dive into the role of opposition. And Quincy, you've touched on it quite a bit in terms of the responsible role of opposition, not just the role of it, but the responsible role of opposition. And for fear of being the mini historian, I can recall 2010 to 2015. And if anybody was to pull up copies of the Anguillian during that time, we would have had a former chief minister who had a standing article in the Anguillian every single week. And so and I will use a term that he used in one of those very same articles. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. You cannot, I've always twisted that into, if it's good for the goose, it's better for the gander. But you cannot tell me it was okay for you to be in opposition and to advocate and to use whatever forms of media whenever you're in opposition. But you yourself should have no opposition. No one should have a voice. No one should oppose anything that you say that we don't think is right for the country. And as Quincy said, it is not opposing for opposing's sake. It is not opposing simply because it wasn't our idea. It is about the responsibility to stand up and speak for those persons who would have said, I want you to speak on my behalf. So whether it is one person who voted or 3,000 persons who voted, You have a responsibility to be a voice for those persons, elected or otherwise. Those persons have placed their that expectation on you. And so it is mind-boggling the level of hypocrisy that exists when people say, sit down and shut up. Sit down while you're talking so much. Stop writing so much. Who told Mr. Banks to stop writing so much?
Nobody. Nobody. As a matter of fact, the record will show that we, as a government who was in government at the time, said, hey, we encourage that because that's good, that you'll have opposing voices. We are on record for saying that. But now you have Mr. Redacted, who's on every Ken Hodge post, basically saying to shut up.
December 16th.
Well, I just want to make a quick point, when I'm used
Is
to
that going to, sorry, Merrick, is that going to be another holiday? We have December 19th. Can we get the 16th? Where we have Separation Day and Redacted Day?
I used to tell them all the time, I used to tell them all the time, when they were complaining that we are making too much noise. I say, what y'all gonna do when the rest of the team come through, Why y'all gonna do? You know that the rest of the team coming through, don't know them in a panic. Them in a panic. But I did want them. I did want them. And even when you speak about opposing for opposing's sake, right? I was speaking to two AUF supporters recently, right? And I tell them, since we were sworn into the House of Assembly, the couple times we went to the House of Assembly, go and check the record and see how many times the opposition in Parliament has opposed or voted no against things that were brought to the House of Assembly. There was just the 2 GST bills. When they bring things that make sense in the
you're
House,
my friend and someone I trust. And I would say that generally speaking, the opposition would not vote against its own agenda. So maybe that's why we need to probably see their agenda and see, because
Pop your color.
you do have a point. It would be possible to vote against our own agenda. Okay.
So you might not be as good as you think you are.
It might not be a good,
have to wait to see a different agenda appear before you and be like, what is this? See if you support it then. But you would be a hypocrite if you go back and not vote for the things that you campaigned on. So
well,
because
we were told,
the general feeling across the country is, where would the United Front be without the APM agenda? And I can tell you, not aware, because I went to them town hall.
Tell us about it.
Okay, I took notes. 1 second. Let me refer to my notes. So I got there late, and I was waiting on someone on the outside, so I had to leave a recording device so I could kind of listen back to some bits. So this is generally what I got. I was not there for the beginning of Kyle Hodges' presentation. I believe he would have been the first speaker. I was only there to the end. In a nutshell, he was talking about projects, many of which started under the APM and will come to fruition under the AUF, that he's currently supporting as the Minister of Economic Development. One of the things that jumped out from Kyle's presentation is that he said that they extended the moratorium preventing foreign-owned construction and project management companies for operating in the private sector in Anguilla. So Jose was the next speaker. He started right after Kyle. He was the next speaker. He announced that the government would have hired 2 foreign-owned project management companies to manage infrastructural projects and road development projects. This I tell you, all of this government is a headless chicken government, and I have never been proven wrong up to this point. But that was a big thing. He was like, we need to find out the way how to tackle all of these foreign-owned project development companies. And then Jose said, well, I'm pleased to announce that the government would have engaged 2 project management companies and I was like, so that was that.
And one of them is BTQS.
Hayden got a bone to pick on that, and they're gonna let Hayden come in afterwards. So then Jose was interesting because it seemed as though Jose learned most of last year, I guess, that there's a process for every capital project. And he's very angry with Hayden for not giving him projects that he can just hit the ground running with. And the fact that he has to start from scratching some of them beyond conceptual planning. So he was complaining a lot, complaining that, the farm administration would have made all of these announcements. And he can't believe that when he got in, it wasn't done.
Oh, the work was okay.
He
So
really
he
was
didn't
trying
want.
to make it seem like, yeah, so they're so, they were leading the country astray. I'm like, Jose, if you don't know, in order to start a project, you need money to start a project and resources. So when you come to the national budget and you are speaking about a project, you are telling the people that you plan on putting resources into these projects. So even though some of the projects that you might have found were in their infancy, that is usually how the process and and project building works. They don't just follow the thin air and then structures are on the ground. So that was a real gripe in his shoe about that. And I'm so sorry that he had to learn that on the job. Anyway, so he spoke about the electricity company situation, Anglec. Here's this interesting point. He's saying that he made the implication, I can't say he said it outrightly, that the government credits would likely come to an end after 2026, or at the very least, that's how far they can foresee it for now, unless they, I guess, go back in when they create the next budget for next year, try to find a way to put it in. But as of now, its unofficial end, I guess, is 2026. But that's how our budgets run, so I don't want it to be assumed that I'm saying that he gave it a definitive end date, just to be fair. But he said that in the moment, he's trying to negotiate with the CDB for a quicker turnaround for their loan release and management process, because it's likely going to be a 2-year process to get to renewable energy. So what he is going to do, very, very bright idea, is to start the Anglec project by 3 to 4 megawatt solar farms projects, like per project. So instead of trying to go in there and getting the 12 or we think we were looking at 30 something initially, but maybe they were looking at 12 in the first
We are looking
instance.
at we are looking at 30, at least 30.
We were looking at 30 something, but I think they were looking at 12.
But
I
12 is
think
not
that's
going
what
to
the
do
guy.
anything for us, Quincy.
I
But Quincy,
feel like I heard 12, right?
I need to jump in here and say something that you missed, where Jose said that the capital expenditure is going from 9 million to 200 plus million, right? And the component at the Ministry of Infrastructure is the same, staff component, which is absolutely absurd because we did not have a 9 million capital budget. In 2025, our capital budget was well over 100 million. In 2024, our capital budget was about $100 million. So we were
No,
managing.
he said that the budget, I believe the year he quoted might have been 2020. So he was saying, like, in a short period of time, 5 or 6 years, we went from 9 to 200 million, and we
Yeah,
did not increase our
but the
capacity.
fact remains, though, Quincy, is that we were managing our capital projects without any
Yep.
consultants, without paying the consultants, and we had no issue managing all of these capital projects. So why is it that
Was
he, Jason,
is
and he, Jose, and he, Cardell, and who is this, Kyle, and even Jason can't do it? Why is it that we can't get no movement on an Island Harbor basketball court? Come on. If they need help, all I'm gotta do is make a phone call. I'll jump in. I don't need to be paid. I kind of bored sometimes at home. That's why they're trying to get a road done for Jose.
Well, Joseph's primary, like the majority of his presentation was an exercise in incompetence. And so he made announcements, but then he also complained that he had to do the work. So, Shelley's primary announcement. She's expanding on the school bus program.
sorry, repeat that for me. I really didn't hear.
The primary announcement made by the minister responsible for education is that the festival's office is open and that she will be expanding on the school bus replacement program that was started by Deanne. She tried to make a dig by saying that the school buses was too small, but Deanne added the school buses. So I don't know what was the purpose of that, but either way, she's expanding Deanne's school bus program. So very excited for the work that she's doing. Neil Cardigan had an emergency of some sort, so he had to step out and things. So Neil was the person who, I don't think that there was a presentation on tourism, or perhaps I missed that. But Neil was the person who presented for health. So he made a grand announcement that he's working very hard to ensure that Anguilla will have its first successful joint replacement surgery by 2027. For the listeners, I just want to let you know that Anguilla had its first successful knee replacement surgery in 2024. But that's still good news.
Repeat that again and say which administration was in power.
As a result of the investment by Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster, Anguilla had its first successful knee replacement surgery in 2024. But Neil is really gung-ho on ensuring that we get our first one, I guess, in 2027. So that's exciting work. Merrick's want to say something.
That should be our second first.
Our second first one.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Our second first one.
And if you want to fact check me on that, you can go to the budget of 2025, where we do a little bit of a recap on what happened in 2024 in the Ministry of Health. And you'll see that Dr. Webster would have said in his budget speech that we had our first successful knee replacement surgery in 2024. He made an announcement about multiple positions being filled in 2026. I do want to point out that a lot of these positions were budgeted for in the 2025 process. I don't know why they were not filled. I know this is the administration pausing. I don't know if they paused because they were measuring twice. They paused because I try to be serious. I try to be a change person. They paused because they were doing the salary review. But again, this is an ongoing process done. This is serious matters, right? But I'm laughing at the fact that this is being presented as new work being done by the AUF, and people being like, "Oh my goodness!" When I'm like, there are about 2 or 3 budget addresses I can show you in, which shows that this is not even a major addition to what has been happening, and it was already presented. They expanded Senior Shield to include Paramount and Sunil pharmacies. Again, extension of the APM program. And I think the only new policy I would have heard there is that uninsured persons can benefit from free diabetic and hypertension medication. I think you can register at Social Development, if I'm not mistaken, where you ordinarily would go to register for these sort of initiatives, similar to Senior Shield and Junior Shield. So, Premier Cora, the London house will be bought, like it or lump it. That was my takeaway. She somehow, as I mentioned earlier, has a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between the Lance and Bull Cultural Center and the house in London. That is a cause of a concern. She then started to reiterate the fact that she had no involvement or knowledge of the discrepancies in the salaries, in spite of bringing a detailed document to executive and the House of Assembly. And
how you're not gonna know? How you're not gonna know these things, Gums Marie, when you're the one who side through an executive council on multiple occasions, who not only that, a presentation was made to you on multiple occasions. You made suggestions in executive council and you tabled it in parliament. You tabled it.
I know the people for this job. Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Because I keep telling you that you're either incompetent or the country being run by ghosts. We need to get down to the root of the matter. I know I'm a person who loves laughing, who enjoys a good joke, but we need to call in the experts on this matter, because who was standing before you when you were in the House of Assembly that fateful, what was it, Monday morning, Monday
Monday
afternoon?
morning, Monday afternoon.
Who
No,
was
none other
standing
than
before
Corey
you?
Personage.
In the farm, in flesh?
In flesh and person. And the thing is this, right? Whenever something goes well, they grab all the credit for it. But the minute something goes bad, they throw all the blame. Now, they were taking all the credit in the world for this salary review on Monday and Tuesday. By Wednesday, they were trying to throw the blame on Oldtown and Perrin and Barrister Harden Hodge and somebody else, and eventually APM, because APM is the one who started it back in 2023, 24, and no personal responsibility whatsoever. None.
Usually when they speak it, you look for, is it projection or deflection?
Listen, they do both. They do sometimes both in the same sentence.
Oh, I want to
Very
just jump.
skilled.
I want to jump, and I know Quincy, you haven't finished, but
Oh, that was it.
oh, that was it. Oh, okay, good. So I can jump in because I
Oh,
I
and I
had
gotta come back, but go ahead.
okay. I had put up on my there was a meme going around with the deputy governor basically saying he woke up the following morning and didn't realize he's now the premier and the minister of finance. A good friend of mine who's a APM AUF supporter, kind of come at me with it. Right. So my response was simply this. Our premier's a established lawyer. She's the minister of finance. Have respect for her. Consider her, so I'm assuming I will consider her a smart lady. So I said to her, so you are telling me that our premier, our minister of finance, took a $26 million pay package to executive council, brought it to the House, presented to the House, and did not know what was in that package, did not have an idea what's in the package, and then have their flag wavers and card carrying members saying they were blindsided. So, so who's watching the cheese? Who is, because this is what you're supposed to do. So I feel if I were the governor's office, man, I would be just pitching through whatever I want in executive council and tell them go with it because obviously nobody's paying attention. You're telling me a $26 million pay package and nobody on government side, like one person with Dr. Webster who did not see the entire package. Dr. Webster, who did not see the entire package, raised it in his presentation in the budget, raised it again in committee stage that this thing is not right, that the bottom is way too small. He even asked for the percentages as to what the bottom is getting as opposed to closer to the top. He asked all those questions without the information at hand. And persons who had the information were blindsided. Couldn't say whenever you're on, I get easily confused. I'm blaming you.
I do have a question, and do the persons who are making some of these comments in an attempt to defend the gross negligence that we saw, do they realize that these comments are serving as an indictment of incompetence?
I had someone who reached out that I would classify as a seniorish civil servant, and they commended the way the Angular Progressive Movement is managing our advocacy for improved management of this process and advocacy on behalf of the civil service who feel that they don't want to be victimized, but they want representation, and they feel like they can come to us with their concerns on these matters. But they then express swiftly after some of the louder voices for the Angular United Front, which makes them question if this is a sentiment within the Angular United Front, who is attacking civil servants who did get a good pay increase. And let me just say it explicitly. I haven't worked with all of the civil service, but I've worked with a great deal. I've worked, when I was PALSEC of tourism, I got to work with tourism. I got to work with the Ministry of Health. By association, some projects I worked with MICU. I worked very closely with economic development. I worked with my own ministry that focused on IT and natural resources and sustainability. And I also worked very closely with Dr. Webster's ministry and the Ministry of Finance very often. These are competent people who deserve to be paid fairly. And there's not, apart from wondering and hoping for the best for their sake, that the increases are sustainable, I have no issue because people are going to fashion their lifestyle around these increases because this is their salaries.
Yes,
and we
yes.
know that the civil servants have been on the cutting end of every wrong thing that happened in this country historically. So I don't want them to be in a position where in a year, 2, 3 years, we're back to sniping their salaries. But other than that, I support all of the people who are very happy with their salaries. I support them because I've seen how hard they work. And I know that if they were to shop their resumes elsewhere, they will be snatched up from Anguilla, and Anguilla will be disadvantaged because of it. And so not only do we need to make their salaries competitive locally, at least regionally, with other overseas territories, we should do our best to make them competitive. So if somebody is getting, a civil servant is getting $15,000 increase, if there's paperwork to support that, you hear no questions on Quincy Gumsonry. In fact, you don't hear it from any of the other members of the Anguilla Progressive Movement. Our concern are those persons who would have gotten 10 and 15 and $20 increases and $100 increases, and the increases just not seeming as though the process properly considered them. No, there was a pause that to me did not need to happen in the way that it did. However, it happened. The pause clearly tells persons if they are dissatisfied. And you know why the pause shouldn't happen? Because of the information that followed, giving people an idea of how to engage with the process around this whole pause. This process, so someone sent me yesterday, earlier today, something that says job evaluation and classification grievances and clarification framework. So this was given to people. Now, I don't know if this was just written by ChatGPT or if there was a whole lot of thought that went into it. But when I hear the complaints that were aired coming up to the end of June, and I read this framework, it feels as though it is set up in a way to completely ignore some of the louder complaints that we were hearing, which makes me wonder, why did we do this in the first place? It tells you the guiding framework and what would be eligible grievances and matters that are not eligible for review. So if you are just generally dissatisfied with the outcome, we're not going to hear from you. This does not qualify as a matter for eligible for review. If you have concerns about the historic relation between your post and another post and how it now plays out here in the new framework, this is not for you. But it would be fair if you are on a certain grade in one ministry before the framework review, and then someone who was considered your peer prior to the review is now 2 grades higher than you, you should wonder, well, what is the disparity here, and what was the purpose for this disparity? That should be an eligible reason for review, but that is not. Comparison between individuals or departments, length of service, acting appointments, personal performance, post hoc attempts to materially amend or rewrite job descriptions, personal qualifications outside of the requirements of the job will not be considered grounds for review. Requests based solely on perceived title, equivalency, or status concerns. It does go on, so it's like about 4 or 5 pages, if I'm not mistaken. At the end, it says, we will have a holistic review in 2 years. So if you have any of these other concerns, you can wait for 2 years for it to be then revisited. So where you pause it?
Yeah, yes, yes.
On
Good
top of
question.
that, on
Where you
top of
pause
that,
it?
Quincy, during the committee stage, when this thing came to the House of Assembly, the question was asked if there's any way, if persons in the service have grievances about their increases, if there are methods that they can use to address. And short answer was yes. So why weren't these methods put in place? That seems to me would have been the most sensible thing to, if there are persons with grievances, you handle those persons with grievances and you move forward. Because now the other thing that I am questioning about whatever this pass supposed to be, because obviously from what you read and from the all information I'm seeing, the pass is not to go over and start the process from scratch, because we saw where that started and it still wasn't ready when we went to the house 2 weeks ago. So obviously you're not restarting. You're just looking at persons, I guess, who have their grievances. Um, if they feel that these persons are supposed to come up, you mentioned earlier about, is it sustainable? Which is a question I was also asked, and which is one of the bigger questions in the general public. Is it sustainable? So if these other persons have to come up, that there's no money, you have to come back to the house, you have to do another supplemental, and it is a greater strain now on the budget as well. So it's something that has to be looked at overall. I was speaking to somebody I really truly respect, was it yesterday or the day before? And they were saying, you guys should have just, when you wrote for the house about the house, should have just stopped the entire thing. You didn't, it was short notice, it was everything. You guys should have just stopped the process. My thing was, we did have the
We couldn't stop the
discussions.
process.
Sorry?
We couldn't stop the process. The government has a majority.
Yeah, no, but he did, because we did get a house taken off. We did
Yeah,
get
but
a house taken
because of
off.
how
So
that broke all rules. That broke all rules.
well, technically the rules were already broken when we only got the information 12
Less
hours
than
before.
24 hours before.
Exactly. So already the rules were broken. So
But then the point still goes back to the point that we couldn't stop it. The opposition couldn't stop it.
well, that's why he was saying we should have written and make the note to ask for everything to be
For
pushed
everything
back.
to be back, right?
Yeah, for everything to be brought back. Because here then you would admit it was rushed. I did not get a chance to look through all of the different discrepancies in the salaries in that space of time. It would have been almost impossible, else you would have been operating without any sleep. So it, like I said, I really respect the opinion, and they were saying you guys should have really, really pushed to take it. And now in retrospect, maybe we should have. Maybe we should have. We understand the context of where we were operating under. We realize we were brief to some extent. Um, but it's one of those things to really think that when it was announced, that these things would have been ready for May, and that you realize 12 hours before you're ready to go to the house, it still wasn't ready. You kind of wonder which May they were going to be ready for.
But
Sorry,
someone,
Mary,
the, the person who sent me this document is telling me I did not do the document justice, because I needed to talk about what are eligible grievances, and I only spoke about what is not eligible for review. So let me just go back to my previous point. Sorry, Gunito.
Yeah.
So here's what will be reviewed in this process. Significant factual error in the information relied upon during evaluation, administrative or clerical errors, incorrect reporting relationship or supervisory spoke reflected during evaluation, demonstrated inconsistency in application of the approved method, an issue that appears unusual or needs explanation. So these are the things that you cannot, so grievances should be confined to clarification requests, factual inaccuracies, administrative errors, or concerns regarding application of the approved methodology, and the grievances that will not be considered would be a wholesale revision of draft description, introduction of material and new duties, restructuring of posts, or reopening of the broader job evaluation and classification exercise. So in other words, we don't plan to pay you $1 more if you feel like you didn't get what you deserve. If you went school after we tell you to go school and you ain't satisfied with the fact that this is not properly recognizing the fact that you are now higher educated, too bad, so sad. If you and the same person in your grade were getting the same thing and now we just said that they're getting more and you want to know why this is so, this ain't in the room for it. So people are just gonna get a bunch of deny, rejected, deny, rejected on their request, because the basis of the commentary fall in all of the categories, the widest that are ineligible for review. So the premier got up and said that she said, pause the whole thing, we gotta look over this, and then decided to give people a fake review and then tell them, well, the concerns that you actually came to me about, they won't be, well, she didn't even have the gall to tell them that. They have to know, we don't have a permanent secretary to communicate to them and say, none of the things that you would have expressed to your premier are actually being, if you are the premier of the country, you can say, hey, I don't care if this got to pass for 6 months, we're going to get it right. Listen to the people.
I do feel a level of empathy for the premier, maybe more than she has for the people of Anguilla. But I do feel a level of empathy for the premier in terms of the timeline and maybe the accelerated timeline that they were forced to operate under because of a stray wayward comment that they were then held to. And so I think in looking at it in the most objective way possible, it is possible that they did not have sufficient time to be able to address, to consult, and to get the feedback that was necessary before.
Be clear. Show your working.
Say again?
Be clear. Show your working.
Yes.
What was the comment?
I would have to go because I don't want to paraphrase. I want to make sure that if I say it, I want to read it verbatim. And there's so many, but I will find it so that I can read it. Here we go. It was a comment by a supporter. It was a Facebook post by a supporter, and they were asking, where's the salaries that were budgeted for? And the response by Shelia Rogers Webster was, the new salaries will be effective next month. This was said on April 11th.
Right. But not only that, you have to also consider now
the follow-up, the follow-up comment was, you have a lot of hopes up now, Madam Minister. That was the follow-up comment. Sorry, there are two follow-up comments. The first one was, thanks for the update, Madam Minister. And the second was, you have a lot of hopes up now, Madam Minister. And rightfully so. If you're getting information from someone who is actively commenting on Facebook on almost everybody's posts with government updates, then people have a genuine expectation that when you say something, they can hold you to it. And so maybe it might be a lesson to leave the public relations to the public relations officers.
And do more than buy school buses.
you know, that goes back to even when I brought up in the House things that was said at press conferences. It ended up being a point of order. But my point, and I will forever stick to the point, if my ministers make a public announcement, I will hold them to it. And so it shows the need for when they're presenting their information to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Because I have no doubt that comment is what really was one of the catalysts for causing what happened down the road. It was obvious that if at the 8 hour we, the members of parliament, did not have the requisite information to present in the House, that if they weren't ready in June, they obviously weren't going to be ready in May. They obviously weren't going to be ready in May. So why not just pause and just let the people know it's being worked on? It's a longer process than anticipated, but you will get it. And here we are. There's a pause after the pause. And what will be the outcome of this at the end of the day? You just read it out. Basically, a lot of persons who hopes for probably up are still going to be told you don't qualify. Because the methodology is not going to change. It's still there. There might be 1 or 2% who did slip through the crack, but overall, it's not going to change. PwC will going to say, "Look, this is what we work with, and this is the end of the discussion." I guess the administration, it will give the administration time now to be able now to place more blame on the deputy governor's office and on the PSAs. But at the end of the day, somebody have to approve this and vote for it in executive council.
The ghost.
I think I want to jump back to again where I was going with it in terms of the empathy that I feel for the Minister of Finance and the Premier in this situation. Because I don't think we can overlook the fact that this comment was disrespectful. It was disrespectful to the Minister of Finance. It was disrespectful to the process. It was disrespectful to civil servants. And it begs the question, are we so... I want to choose...
All right.
No, I want to choose my words carefully, because are we so jumpy? Are we so willing to say, look at me, look at what I'm doing, that we are willing to bypass well-established procedures? Is that how we make such an announcement? Is that the respect that public servants should expect? That they find out that their salaries, the increase in their salaries, is through a stray comment? Is that the respect that we give them? And so there is a level of what respect is being placed on persons, on processes, in an effort to one up, in an effort to what was that comment, Quincy? Because this is their version of pork barrel politics. I did it. I announced it.
But I want to reiterate like this the history of the salary reviews, which is, imagine, and this is why I think I asked if the review process was written by ChatGPT because it seems as though persons don't appreciate why there were high expectations. If you've been in the civil service for over 20 years, you have not received an increase in over 20 years. In fact, you have been on the receiving end of several cuts. If you joined the service in the last 10 years, There was a freeze on increments. And and also the back pay issue. So from 2023, when the announcement was made that we are seeing the upward trajectory of Angola, and in 2024, we want to begin a process to review salaries. People were hopeful. Because not only did you have 2006 salaries operating in a 2020-something economy, there were really no incentives financially to be a member of government, because the first austerity measure would be your salary. That has been proven.
And we know we heard those calls during 2020, 2021 by some very same supporters.
McNeil Rogers, not just supporters, but legislators were saying we've already drafted a 5% decrease, cut their salaries and don't do GST.
Cut them.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. And so now that you have restored hope in this, your hope has been restored in the system, you've seen the glimmers of hope in that there's you're receiving 2 bonuses, the increments are back, and the back pays were completed. You are believing in this process. Some persons wanted to leave the civil service, and because of their hope in the outcome of this process, held on.
Yes.
In the Webster administration, we anticipated June 2025 as the time for this project to be completed and salaries to be implemented. That was not met. A year later, so now you had to wait. Some people were hopeful saying maybe it's August, some people saying September, maybe by end of December, But otherwise, persons were waiting. Now you had to wait for a year. On top of the 20 years, you had to wait. Prior to that, you had to wait an additional year to get the outcome. It is completely okay and warranted and understandable that you would be dissatisfied after all of those promises, after all that time, your salary increase was negligible. Persons are saying things like people are just inconsiderate, they want too much, they just want the whole hog. Do you know what it's like to have to survive on the same salary that you could have probably had savings on in 2006 that you can't make ends meet in 2025?
Yep.
That is a reality. The reason for this process was because we identified that too many persons within the service were leaving and getting additional jobs. There were different department heads that would come to executive council and lay it all on the table and say, I can't operate in the way that I need to operate because too many members of my department have 2 jobs. And then sometimes when they figure out one to sacrifice, they sacrifice their government job because government's job is a salary job and their second job is a wage job. So they feel like even if they don't show up to work, they're gonna get a full salary. But if they don't show up to their secondary jobs, they're gonna get a reduced rate wage. So they rather take a sick day because because they're tired or because they need to go to the other job or whatever the case is. This is the reason. This is what we said verbally was the reason. So if you are a person with 2 jobs and you hear there's a salary review and you hear persons are talking about the fact that we want to eliminate or at the very least significantly reduce the number of persons within the service who have to look for multiple jobs to make ends meet, you don't expect to hear that with that intention, you are getting $50 increase. That intention, that starting aspiration, and the final product does not match. It does not. Because I am anticipating at the very least that I can get enough to make the need for getting my additional job less attractive. That is what I'm hearing. Or there's a pathway for me to work my way to a certain area. So when you now get a number, a figure, and you are being told you're going to get $1,000, your eyes get big a year increase.
Mm-hmm. Make it make sense.
It is impossible to make it make sense. And so now when you are saying this is ridiculous, you start to make noise. You call your representatives, you call the premier, you call members of the opposition, you even call people on the radio stations. Then you hear, worry not. We're going to pause this and we're going to review it because we realize that people are dissatisfied with the outcome. You calm down again. Then you get the circumstances under which the outcome will be reviewed. And then you're told that your grievance is not going to be considered. It is not welcomed. It's in black and white. Your concern does not meet the bare minimum of our engagement. However, good news, you can wait again in 2 years where we hope to do another review. Putting people where? Putting people where? Kyle,
Putting
where are
people
you
in the
putting
rear.
people?
In the rear.
Putting people in the rear. I'm going to buy a yellow shirt tomorrow, get up on it. With a lighthouse with its back turned on the water. Because I don't understand how you can feel like this is a satisfactory communication, especially because the Premier herself said that she has been the recipient of these sorts of concerns. So if people have been messaging you, your constituents have been messaging you, the people who rely on you to run this country have been messaging you, you said, wait, I'm going to pause this process and review.
Yep.
You feel satisfied to leave a permanent secretary who is a policy follower. So somebody has to approve this. Send this communication and say, hey, don't blame me now. I've done a process and it will be done. A couple circumstances. The only people that operate like that, you know, like what's the genie in the bottle? You get a couple of wishes and then you make a wish and then the wish come back to bite you. You're not dealing with a fair hand. You're not governing with honesty. Because people sat down, people became quiet. To me, all it seems like this process was to buy the government time and quiet. Because the outcomes will not change.
You know, and what they've essentially done is that they've put us back into a back pay situation. Because here we go again, and when I say that this period is a very reminiscent of 20 years ago, I mean, play for play. It is the same. It is the exact same. Play for play. I spent 6 weeks, not much time, but I spent 6 weeks in 2025 asking the people of Anguilla to consider when the Anguilla United Front say that they're going to put people force. I asked them, who people? Who are the people that they will put force? Because historically, it's never been the people of Anguilla. Historically, it's never been the public servants. It's been their people. So again, I ask, who people are they putting first? When they buy this house in London, which people are they putting first? Is it the 15,000 people that live here in Anguilla? When they decide to pause this already bungled review and salary increase? Who are they putting first? Not the people who were already waiting and anticipating for years, not the people who already have their new appointment letters in hand and budgeted accordingly. Who are they showing that they're putting first? Not the farmers when they go and plant whatever they planted there in the valley and let it rot, not fit for human consumption once they reaped it. Who are they putting first? I know we are pretty much wrapping up. Those are my final comments. Who are they putting first? Quincy, your final thoughts.
I just feel if I can't do the job, I just can go home. Honestly, I got this video of like people like go outside, go outside, go outside. That's how I feel about this government. I'm tired of the nonsense. There's no reason. There's no reason for us to be here. You are experts in incompetence. We understand you've made your position clear. Go outside if you can't do the job, because this is unnecessary.
Mary?
I don't know. We can follow that. But I have a request of the people of Anguilla. I have a request. Let's think for ourselves a bit more. Let's analyze a bit more. When the information is there, let's get the information, because I am getting more and more concerned, because I will refuse to believe that we are any less intelligent as a people than anywhere else in the world. And it's kind of feeling like a slap in my face when I see certain persons trying to create narratives from what is obviously not so, just to appease or just to prop up an administration that is not doing their work, that is not doing their job. So my hope, my prayer is that persons look for the information themselves. Persons start to think critically about the information that they're getting, and ask the questions, and ask the hard questions of your representatives, because persons need to know when these decisions are being made. They're not made in a vacuum. These decisions are made amongst, they go to cabinet where they sit and discuss, they go to executive council where they sit and discuss again. And when they do come to the House of Assembly, they have gone through the ringer with all the information. So the people of Angola cannot be fooled that we were blindsided, that this information was not given. And if that is the case, then we need to ask. We need to ask, why are we electing persons who is not standing in the gap for us, who are not standing in the gap for us? Persons who are going to look at a $26 million package and just say, okay, them say it's okay, we will run with it. And then 2 days later, because their biggest supporters come up with Facebook posts because they weren't happy about what they see, then they go back. I just want us to think better. That's all.
Hayden?
Well, all I'll say is that the Angola United Front, in terms of infrastructure and tourism, they have continued the model that the Angola Progressive Movement have started. And I'm still disappointed. I know it's Merrick's constituency, but I'm still disappointed that they did not complete or start the Phillips Drive Road and the North Hill Main Road. Those are very important roads to Angola. And I would hope that with the idea that they are going forward to develop some roads, that the Eradicate.road program will start in earnest, and the people of Angola money will be protected at all costs. No, we didn't touch the $40 million that they're trying to give the quote-unquote ghost company for that building that does not belong to anybody other than the people of Angola. But at some future program, we need to talk about all the grifting that is happening in this administration.
And on that note, maybe Hayden, that you'll be back next week to discuss that. So thank you.
Also, the Merck and I would be on, I believe, I'm not sure, we may not be, because I think this week coming is the celebration of the 50th
50th
anniversary of
anniversary of the
Parliament.
house. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a week of activities that, Mary, before you go, you didn't give us a report on what the training was like in England.
We are out of time. We are not out of time, but just let's say it was awesome. The training was awesome, and PEC is now ready to hit the ground walking.
Excellent. So
For the public, just for the public information, that's the Public Affairs Committee, Accounts Committee, and that's going to be cranking up very soon. There's a lot of things that we got to dig into, and Merrick and Dr. Webster is going to be cracking hard on that. So stay tuned.
excellent. So thank you, everyone, for spending Thursday evening with us. Thank you for joining us on APM Online Conversations with the Source. We will be, well, when I say we, some of us, maybe this group, but we'll be back here next Thursday, just really looking and taking a look at what is happening, what you need to know, and just staying informed of the happenings and the advocacy that we continue to have on your behalf. So good night, everyone.